So this is take two. I tried it. I was getting a bunch of tech issue feedback. Hi, I'm Boiler Dowd. Hope you're doing well. It's Saturday, October 5th, 10:57 p.m. I decided to post much later than right after the game. I stayed at my brother's house, watched some football. Then I wasn't really motivated to talk about this. And now the funny thing is I've just watched, 2 games where potentially the goalposts are going to be ripped down. Minnesota just beat USC. They were storming the field. You saw Vanderbilt beat Alabama, made history there. Football can be fun. That's my whole point. Football can be really fun. It simply is not fun right now in God's country for a myriad of reasons. I'm going to talk about a couple of them here in a second. Before I do, I want to thank the people that made my shirt. This is Home Field Apparel, some of their art. Head over to homefieldapparel.com. Check out the platinum packs. Check out the jackets that are available. The 90s retro jackets. The coaches jackets are also pretty cool. Enter Boiled25 at checkout. You'll get 15% off your first purchase. And also, when I'm on campus and I'm frustrated and I can't stand being in Ross-Ade anymore, I like to sprint towards the fire station, take a left, and then run in to see my friend Adam and Jake. Hopefully Adam will have a hug for me because I'm pretty despondent at that point. And then I'll eat my sorrows away. Maybe have a pint with a Boiled Sports magnet in the bottom. Who knows? If it's game day, you may get lucky that way too. Burgers, beef, beer. That's AJ's. EatAJ's.com. Well, we got to see some really bad football again today, and I'm going to dig into the stats a little bit here in a second. But before I do, I wanted to dig into some other stats. Let's start it off with a bang, shall we? So we're watching some pretty bad football. Purdue is now 1-4. They lost 52-6 to Wisconsin in Madison. Another record-setting loss for the Purdue football program. This time they set the record for worst loss versus Wisconsin. Now they've had their worst losses versus Notre Dame and Wisconsin the same season. And it feels pretty bad. It looks pretty bad. You have a coordinator fired this week. You didn't think it would cure everything, but you did think a team that has a defensive-minded coach would have a bunch of guys that make tackles, but they couldn't do that. Purdue's offense couldn't move the ball consistently. We did see some new wrinkles, which was fun. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. But like I said, it just feels bad. This season feels bad. So I went back and I compared it to 2 of the worst seasons in the last 31 years. One close to my heart, 1993 was my first year on campus. Jim Coletto's team was really, really, really bad. They were 1-10 that year. But how did they start that season? Through the first 4 games, the differential was only negative 8.25 points. How about the 2013 season? Another fun one. So 20 years later, Daryl Hazel was coaching. Things were really bad. I removed the Indiana State game from this equation, and the differential there, because they beat Indiana State by 6 there. Okay, but the reason I did it, you'll see in a second. The point differential was negative 26.25 points, and this year, through 5 games, Purdue is 1-4. Their lone win coming versus Indiana State, where they looked like football gods. Right, they played nearly perfect game. Cruise to victory. So I removed the Indiana State game out of fairness. Both those teams removed the Indiana State game, kept it all upper division. And this year's team, the differentials between those first 4 games is negative 33.5 points. Purdue's differential over 33 points a game. And so when you get smoked 52-6, that's bad. When you get beaten, 66 to whatever it was versus Notre Dame, it's bad. To have it happen twice in a 4-game period, it's really, really bad. This is not fun. This is not good. I don't want to say desperation, but it's just the thing that's bad is I think maybe you did this today. I came into the game with horribly low expectations. And so I was just excited to see a little bit of newness in the offensive play calling. We saw some kind of interesting stuff. You know, we saw a jet sweep. We saw we saw Hudson Card line up out left. That was cool. But some kind of vanilla play calling early. The first couple drives, Purdue would get a first down, which was nice. They start the game, start the possession, get first down. And then the play calling after that would be kind of more of what we saw with Harrell at the helm of the offense. But in the third possession or so, it looked like they were moving the ball pretty well. They got the ball down close to the goal line, and they settled for a field goal. And then they did that again, and right between those two, maybe their backs were broken. I don't think they were necessarily broken, but Purdue had special teams problems after you saw I don't know if you saw this graphic. It was on the Purdue football Instagram feed that Purdue had the #1 special teams units in America as a whole after the Nebraska game, thanks to those 2 block kicks. And if you look at those 2 block kicks, let's be real honest about those. The holds were horrible. The snap on one was really bad. So the balls came off really low. I mean, they were about 4 feet off the ground when they got to the line of scrimmage, maybe 5. They were low though. Easy pickings, easy blocked field goals, but they kind of boosted the stats. But it was nice to hear and see something good happening for our Boilermakers, meaning, oh, hey, look at that. Special teams are good. Well, today, some of the special teams problems, these were new problems, reared their head. Thieneman had struggled on the first punt, so they forced Wisconsin to punt. Thieneman struggled to field the first one, gave Purdue a long field, but then the second one, he lost it in the sun, and it looked like he was trying to knock it down in a tip drill almost, and just kind of batted the ball down in front of him. Purdue turns over the ball right away. So that whole idea of complementary football that Coach Walters has been talking about, again, rears its head. Purdue's defense does their job, then the offense or the special teams doesn't do their job and gives the ball a short field, gives Wisconsin a short field, and they score right away. And the first half, and I'm just going off memory right now, the first half was closer. The football was better. The second half, Wisconsin's backup quarterback figured some things out. He figured out that, you know what, Purdue's going to play the worst zone I've ever seen. There's going to be just holes all over. If I just take my time and wait for my receivers to find the spot, good night. If I wait for my receivers to sit in the zone, to find the spot, they're going to find it. And then to add insult to injury, those guys would not only find the spot, then they would be off to the races because Purdue defensive backs, maybe linebackers, would miss their tackles. And we saw some of the worst tackling and defending maybe we've seen in my lifetime for Purdue defense. And that says a lot. We've seen bad defenses, haven't we? We've seen bad football. And we're getting there to the point where this is historically bad football. Before I dig into the game any further, I gotta address, do I think Ryan Walters is going to keep his job after this season? I don't. And I've tried to stay away from this topic, but it was everywhere. And all of my friends that are Purdue fans are texting me about this. They said he's done. I don't know how you recover from this. And we'll talk about this more in the Handsome Hour. Usually this is the type of topic we'll leave for that. And post games, I don't get into this type of stuff. But the problem that you've got now is, I mean, it'd be miraculous if he can keep this team together mentally. It'd be crazy. He talked today in the post game. If you watch his post game, he looked absolutely either completely psychotically angry or defeated. And I can't figure out which one. It's one of those two. And I don't know him well enough. You know, our experience with Coach Walters is relatively thin. But it was different. The vibe was different. It was a very short post-game press conference. It was like 4 minutes and 20 seconds. His quote that got my attention was, if I'm being real honest, I think the thing that bothers me most about this game was we're not a very good football team right now. And again, his honesty has always, it's been great, right? I don't think that's the thing that's pretty great about him. He says when something is bad, and he said we're not a very good football team. He's very right. They're a horrible football team right now. Wisconsin's not that good. boys and girls, that's the real problem. I think if you listen, Madison, Camp Randall is a tough place to play. And if you listen to that crowd and if you looked at them between big plays, it was like a muted response. First off, there were empty seats, which is pretty unusual in Camp Randall. I'm sure it was sellout. I'm sure it was. But there were empty seats. And then the way they reacted to big plays, they were like, yes, yeah, good. But almost like they really know the truth that their team's not very good, because they're not. Their offense isn't very good, but their offense looked incredible today. Big numbers all over the field. I haven't really looked at what Wisconsin did. I just watched what Purdue didn't do. So let's talk a little bit about the game. Let's look at these stats. Like I said, Purdue loses 52-6, dropped their fourth of the season. They're 1-4. Their lone win coming from a FCS team, Indiana State. I haven't checked on Indiana State's record. I assume it's fantastic. That's sarcasm. Hudson Card went 11 for 21, 111 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns. And there's just this is a shame now. Devin Mockabee had a couple good runs, 11 carries, 45 yards. His longest was 12-yard rush. I think Elijah Jackson, he came, did he have the fumble or did Merriweather? One of them had a fumble. I can't remember. It wasn't great, but that's not why they lost. They just looked like they didn't belong on the team. Ryan Brown, or on the field with Wisconsin. Ryan Brown played a little bit. They sat down Card in the fourth quarter, I think, if I remember correctly. I watched the whole game. You may not have, because you're wiser than I. But yeah. Jamal Edrin did play. That was good to see him out there. Man, he's a physically imposing dude. I think he had one drop pass, but he looked okay. He didn't look too bad. Only 2 catches. The ball was spread around once again among 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers. Let's look at Wisconsin for fun, because Braden Locke, he's not a great quarterback, and he's a backup, and teams have generally figured him out, but Purdue didn't figure him out. 20 of 31, 359 yards, 3 TDs. He did have 2 interceptions. There's the bright part of the game, by far. That was awesome. Kendrick Breedlove had both of the interceptions. One of them was a kind of a circus catch off the back of a Wisconsin player. Amazing concentration play, but 2 interceptions. Remember, Purdue hadn't had any turnovers this whole season, and they got 2 done today. They got 2 on the board in the first half, and you're like, okay, we're cooking. But then again, that's what I was talking about. The complementary football, it's nowhere to be found. I don't know how. So I've heard people, again, blame this all on the offense. That defensive effort, I can't get over how bad they looked on defense. Just the inability to do little things, the inability to guard anybody, just to stay in front of them was tough. And I know when you're playing a zone, it was a really, really lousy zone, lots of space in there, and that's a scheme issue. But then guys not being able to make the tackle afterwards. We saw, a lot of the problems that we've seen for weeks now are not going anywhere. Marquise Brown, was announced before the game. He's not going to play the rest of the season for Purdue. Very cryptic message from Golden Black. We don't know the whole story, obviously, but he's done for the season. And Alessandro stepped in right away. He had a pretty good breakup, I think, if I remember correctly. But Nyland Green, again, I think he had a couple of those plays where I'm like, what's he doing? I mean, he's clearly a big time athlete, really good football player, but the technique is just awful. I never watched him play at Georgia. I'm gonna be real honest. I never paid attention to him at Georgia. I haven't gone back and watched his film, but man, the team, it just looks like there's a lot of regression to me. Guys getting worse. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So next, Purdue gets to go play Illinois at Illinois. Illinois is playing pretty good football. I don't feel great about that game. I'm going to go to you guys, go live, see what you guys have to say. Thanks to everybody who's turning on or who's on here. Probably a lot of you wanted to get on earlier to vent, so I apologize for not getting on sooner. But I think I needed time just to decompress a bit. And like I said, I wasn't super motivated to get here. So the noodle, is here. He says it's a sign. I don't know what he's saying it's a sign about. Is it a sign because of me not being able to broadcast at first and screwing things up? Could be. That could be what you're talking about. Yeah, but this is take two. Greg McManus says hello again. How are you? Greg and I seem to be, and I think the Noodle's in this too. I interacted with these guys on Twitter in lockstep with me on our feelings about the situation, the entire thing. Maybe I'll feel different tomorrow about everything, about the state of the program. Here's the thing, like I'll keep reiterating it until I want some messages need to be put out there again. I got nothing against Walters as a dude. Seems like a great guy. But what he's doing as a coach is not working at all. It's just, to me, to have a defensive-minded coach, a coach that he professionally assesses defenders, then he puts defenses together, gets guys ready for the game. He keeps saying new wrinkles, puts new wrinkles into the scheme. To me, it looks like the wrinkles he adds are overreaction to whatever the problem was the previous week. And so because of that overreaction, the scheme will reflect a major hole that next week. It's almost like Purdue's playing with 10 defenders every week. And then it just takes the quarterback a quarter and a half to figure out where's the hole going to be this week. And then when they find it, they just exploit it over and over and over again. And again, this is another case, by the way. Wisconsin was merciful. This could have been worse. I think it was 52-6 in the fourth quarter. And I tweeted out this game feels much worse than 52-6. And 52-6 is one of those numbers you read and you're like, wow, this is absolute dog meat. And if you love college football, man, like I said, we saw some fun games, and there's still one going on right now. I mean, a big game, Cal and Miami. There's fun to be had. Jay talks about this all the time, how much he likes college football. And I'm with him. I love college football, but I don't look forward to watching Purdue play right now. This is wild stuff. And I guarantee I'm not alone in that sentiment. Daniel Reese says, sucks to watch a game week after week and realize we don't have a chance after the first quarter. The only positional group that looks like they've been coached are the running backs. Yeah, running backs look solid. I agree. I think I hinted at that earlier, that maybe the running backs coach should have been the guy who took the OC job, but I understand why they did what they did. Yeah, the one thing that gets me, and I think I've told you guys this, back in the Hazel years, I hated it when Purdue was down 14-0 in the first quarter. I knew the game was over because the offense was so bad at moving the ball effectively, and the defense couldn't stop anybody back then. And now it's the same thing. They were down 14-0 today, but they came back and they made it a little bit of a game, right? Am I remembering correctly? Then it was 14-6 in the second quarter, I think. And then Wisconsin just stepped all over Purdue. Ken says, what a great day it sure has been. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful day. Basketball's coming. Robert Gill says, coming through loud and clear. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, YouTube's been awesome the last few weeks. Travis Brennan says, hello. How are you, Travis? Greg Manis says, Noodle, need Oregon ticks? I have two. Yeah, I think there are a lot of people like Greg that are from out of town that are going to say, you know what? I might not take that long trip. I might not do that. This type of football changes things, right? Changes your outlook on it. You say, granted, I want to go and be with my pals. No doubt about it. I think that's the thing. It's great to go to a football game. It's one of the best things about it, is tailgating with your friends. But the whole thing that brings it together is the game itself. And if you're coming to multiple games during the year, and if you're like Greg, you've already come to one or two, whatever your situation is, now you say, I've seen this movie. This isn't too great. It's going to cost me a lot of money, a lot of time. I could clean out my gutters this week. Adam Bees says, hope you're doing well. Boiler Dowd says, sadly. Yeah. Trying to keep it light, Adam, but it got dark again here. Sorry to everybody. The Noodle says, why is it worth discussing this game? Not. It continues. Love the shirt. Got me one of those. Yeah, this is a good one. It's the old school big blocky P. It's one of my favorite Purdue logos. Probably right there with the old script logo the basketball team dons. Lavita Bonita says, maybe we just have bad players. I don't think that's it. I'm going to stand on this. Here, whenever I judge a team's roster, whenever I judge a recruiting battle, whenever I judge a recruiting target, I always say, Not necessarily do I look at the stars and the rating. I say, who is after this guy? Look at the roster. And I challenge you to do this because I was big about this in the offseason this year. Look at these guys. Who was interested in them? Most of them had other very good programs that wanted them for the guys who came through the portal. And surely the recruits, Purdue's done a pretty good job getting recruits that are players that were the apple of someone else's eye. Let's use Hudson Card as the example because it's the easiest guy to pick out. We've been in this comment section live during games, and different fan base said, man, Hudson Card's a good one. We wanted him bad. Hudson Card looks really mediocre right now, if we're going to be real honest, right? I think he's got all the skills, and I just think he's in a position to fail. I think this offense is awful. We obviously, it cost somebody his job. Sure, he still got, he got $1.4 million out of his asking him to leave, Anisha's dream. Hudson Card's a good player. I mean it. And I'm not, there's no sarcasm there at all. But he is an indicator of a bigger thing. There are a lot of guys on that field that are good players that are looking their worst right now. And I do not think we have bad players. Doug and Angie Lotta says, hello, another collapse. Yep. Josh Deach says, I think we should let Matt Painter coach the football team. I mean, it can't get any worse. The funny thing is the philosophies that Painter has installed, they took time for Painter to figure out. That's one of the things that's great is you see the football and basketball program it's not great to see a football program in this position, but you compare and contrast with what the basketball team is, an organization that really knows itself and has figured out how it wants to be known and what it wants to be known by. Compare and contrast that to a football team who looked like they had it figured out, and they had no clue what they're doing. And we have no reason to believe that's getting better. Greg Manis says, calling today's performance bad is an insult to the word bad. I agree. It is. I had a lot of adjectives that I didn't use, and I've rewritten this once. I got a little pithy with it. Making history, though, I think is a good thing, right? It's always good to make history, right? And Purdue keeps making history. It's amazing. Adam Beasley says Wisconsin was favored by 12.5. Lock of the century. Yeah, many of you said that. I don't bet on sports. I just like sports. Like, I'm going to watch the Miami-Cal game tonight, and I'm going to be interested in it. It's going to be fun to watch. I'll stay up too late watching that game if it stays close. I just watched Minnesota and USC. I got no dog in that one. That was fun to watch. I was watching on my phone as Vanderbilt beat Bama. Yeah, so I just like sports. I don't need to bet. And, but if you do bet and you bet against your Boilers, you made some money, but that's one of those things. I know people say they hedge their bet, so they feel good either way. If Purdue wins, they feel good. If they lose and they win money, they feel good. I just can't get into that. Sorry. I'm too cheap. That's my limitation. Josh Mansfield said, how bad does it have to get before we change course? Yeah, this is a fair question. It's a very fair question. So I've had people tell me that they thought Daryl Hazel was at Purdue for 4 years. And according to my math, tell me I'm wrong. And you guys I'll get the answer here down in the comments here in a minute. But I believe it was 2.5 seasons he lasted. 2.5. And I believe that was Burke's call to pull the trick. Nope. It was not Burke's call. I think that was Babinski and Burke were both there together at that point. Is that right? So it was really Babinski's call. And I think that decision was made in week 6 because what's his name? The special teams coached him to an 0-6 record, and everybody was rooting for him to at least get one to finish the season. So that was 2.5 seasons. Okay. That was unprecedented for Purdue football to be that short with the leash, making the decision. But I believe it was 2.5, not 3.5 seasons. And tell me if I'm wrong down at the bottom, but I don't think I am. And here's why, because I looked at the worst. Hazel's worst year really was his first year. And then they had 3 wins the second year. They were still bad, but they were 1-11 his first year. It was 2013. Is that right? 2013, 2014 was his second season, that 3 wins. 2015 would have been his third season. Okay. And then Braum came on in 2016. I believe that's true. So that would mean he was there for 2.5 years. I think that's true. Eamon J. Gordon's staying positive. Boiler up. Timothy Eaton says, sad day for Boilermaker Nation. Didn't think it could be worse than Hazel era. It has. Walters needs to go. And I think this sentiment saying they look worse than the Hazel era, this is what I'm hearing and seeing a lot. And I don't think it's thoughtless. I really don't. The fact that they're setting records with how bad the games are, that's how you know there's statistical backing for your feeling if you're in that camp. It's not just like it looks bad, it feels bad. I cannot stress the way they played in the second half. They just look completely overmatched. I mean, goodness. I mean, I've seen towards the end of a coaching era, it always looks kind of bad. We can think back some bad eras, the end of the Akers era, the end of the Hazel era, the end of the Hope era. Hope's team went to a bowl, right? And then he didn't coach the bowl. So they weren't playing horribly. But he had lost a lot because they would get beaten so badly at home by mediocre teams. So Ben Cotton, my old buddy, says, the best part of today's game was how I could ignore it to watch my stepson's marching band competition. You're not alone, Ben. And there's that problem. This is the one Mike Babinski has to deal with. Apathy. If you're not angry, if you've already gotten to apathy this quickly, you're probably not alone, Ben. I mean, my outlook on today, like I said, it was less intense, definitely. But I was really sarcastic. And then I just kind of got away from my family so I wouldn't, ruin their day. But I think they're all with me anyway. So Chris says, everyone email Babinski. And I think you should always do that anyway. Positive or negative, let the athletic director know you're behind them, or you're concerned, or you're angry, whatever it is. Let them know. Greg Mendes says, dear Lord, it is worse than Hazel. Sheesh, man. Yep. So this is that case that, here's the thing. If you've got eyes to see, and Jay made this point after the Notre Dame game, when you get beaten that badly, it's really tough to come back, right? When you lose in that manner, it's I don't want to say it's a lost cause, because I don't want to be that way. I tried to stay as positive as I could after watching them. And like I said, I've watched Purdue get their ass kicked by Notre Dame plenty of times, as a student, as a kid before, and as an adult after I got out of school. And that was the worst game we've ever seen. So that one was up there. And then I said, okay, now come back strong next. Oh, nope, not going to do that. Not going to come back strong versus a mediocre Oregon State team. Okay. Show of pulse versus Nebraska. You got a nice full crowd here. Nope. And then this week, maybe I think Notre Dame is worse. We can argue about that. But this was horrible. But Notre Dame's a much better team. That's the thing. I'll stick with that. And I think if a Wisconsin fan's in here, which maybe we'll have one, I think they would admit that too. That this Wisconsin team is just not up to par for a normal Wisconsin team. And like I said, their crowd showed that today. Doug and Angie Latta says, if you get past tackling, blocking, covering, I don't blame the players. It seems like they're not being taught, coached, correct mistakes. I thought you were going to say, if you get past those things, it was a pretty good game, pretty good effort. There's a lot of concern. And where you put the concern really probably comes down to your perspective. I'm not in the mood for blaming players. That's all. You can probably get that theme. But, like I said, again, there are a lot of pros on Purdue's lineup. I said this to my wife. It's such a different era. Like I've always been great. Balloons are here. Celebrate. You can, it's okay to hold these guys a little more accountable. I don't take anything. Don't go at anybody personally. Don't do that. But if you want to state facts and be like, okay, this guy's not doing his job as a football player, you're within your right to do it. I'm just not doing that right now. So that's it. Adam Beasley says, I think you could argue all 4 losses were blowouts. Yeah, you totally can. I think I would argue that. Chris says, what is Mike Berghoff thinking? Yeah, I'm in the dumps, down in the dumps about Berghoff announcing he's leaving. I like Berghoff. I like his attitude. I like the fact that he was a big step forward for me compared to the old way the trustees used to do things. Nothing against those people, but there's an old Purdue way, and this seems like it's a newer way. And I think it's good and right to want more out of the athletic department, specifically out of basketball and football, since they're the big money makers and they bring the TV money. I think you should say we're going to compete on the stage. We gotta really compete in all ways. So, yeah. M&J Gordon says, saw more guys with clear lack of effort today. Yeah, and so that's one thing. There are a lot of Purdue fans saying the effort looked bad today. By the way, I've just lost all comments, which is great. I'll find it again. Let's see if I can get it. Okay. Yeah, so the effort was in question by a lot of Purdue fans, and that's tough to swallow. I'm going to have to skip ahead. I've taken way too much time on this, but let me see. I lost all my comments, and I'm bringing them back here. Let's see. Sorry, guys and girls. Yeah, Ken says, not jumping the gun here, but when does the BS coaching search start? It's already started. I got bad news. We just didn't take it public. I already have a list. And I did it after the Notre Dame game, if I'm being real honest, I'll tell you. But I didn't go public with it. So I have a list. I know Anish has a list always. He just always, it's a spreadsheet and he adjusts it according to time. I don't think he wanted to touch it. And I'll be real honest, Anish has been the most, this is a good thing. You're going to hear on the Handsome Hour, you have three very differing opinions. I don't know, very differing. Jay and I are pretty close. But Anish is trying to be as fair as he can. And I think he's being way too fair, in my opinion. He's being more than fair. He's being very lenient on the situation. But you'll hear both sides. And I think it's great when people that don't agree with things can discuss things. And we're going to do that on Monday. Yeah, M&J Gort says, saw more guys have lack of effort today. That was the thing. That's it. That's a problem. If you believe you saw lack of effort, that's a problem. It's a big problem. So Cat Feline says, I don't think losing is a problem. The problem is constant blowout losses. Yeah, they're demoralizing to the fan base. They're demoralizing to the coaches, to the players, to everybody involved. Greg Menace says when DT dropped both of those, a bunch of people said, well, it's the sun, it's the fault, but it's an outdoor sport. That's a good point. So he's saying when Thieneman botched the two punts, one was really costly, right? Because it gave the ball back to Wisconsin. The other one just cost Purdue field position. This has got to be a frustrating season for him, for Dylan Thieneman specifically, because I mean he was preseason All-American. He's not going to get any of those accolades as the thing goes along. He's making a lot of tackles. I didn't really even read through the tackles. Nice to see Jenkins was moved back to his old position. I think pretty much in the first half, I believe. Again, you can tell me if I'm wrong. That's the way I saw it. It felt like he was playing an end role, which is where he belongs, but another missed opportunity by the coaching staff. Mark Garrity says, I like Walters, the person, same, but Purdue has to move on. We were competitive last year. This year is a clear step in the wrong direction. Yep. Garrett Burke says Purdue needs to hire Coach Shepard. Get him and lock him up. I think Purdue should go. I'm not going to talk about this yet. So you've heard some honesty from me about what I think about coaching search and all that stuff. I'll tell you my philosophy. I guess I'll keep you hanging on for a couple more weeks. I'm not ready to go completely public, but I do have a list. So I wish I didn't. I hate the fact that I'm already saying, okay, change needs to be made, but it really does. Really does. Robert Gill says, can a head coach be demoted to defensive coordinator? Sure. I think, but most of the time these guys have things written in their contracts about there won't be demotions, but it's a very expensive defensive coordinator, right? $4 million a year defensive coordinator is a lot, even for the SEC. I think they're paying guys like $2 million right now. So, yeah. Ancient Atomic Immortality says defeated. He's got too much money to be angry. Talking about Coach Walt. See, I'm kind of jumping around now. James Ferrote says no bench time for players making bad plays and penalties. Well, Card got benched. So Michael, he's talking to Greg. Chris says he upsold the preseason. He should have managed expectations. Yeah, Chris, I told you I feel bad about this. Maybe I led some of you guys astray because I believed what he said. So that's part of the reason I'm probably pissed off. Todd Singer says it wasn't just that Thieneman muffed the punt. It's that he muffed it well inside the 10-yard line. Yeah, Todd. And this is a good point. I returned punts a little bit in high school, And when I was getting coached to do that, my coach said, plant your heels on the 10 and do not take a step backwards. Pretty simple. I'm sure there are different philosophies, especially if you're an electric punt returner. I surely wasn't. Bit of a runt back there. Thienemann's not a runt, though, and he's a great athlete. So, yeah, that was pretty poor technique. Yeah. Let's see, get further down here. Sam Hagerman says, this isn't fun. It isn't anything resembling football either. It's an abomination before God. Second coming of he who shall not be named. I've named him. It's not the second coming of him because he started right away. That's probably the hardest thing. You can't say that it's exactly the same situation because Walters gave us reason to believe and have hope last season. 4 wins right away is pretty solid. And the way he did some things, pretty solid. Even with his youth, you're like, okay, there's a lot of reason to believe things are going to get better. I'm not going to read that, Tim, just because I don't want to put that into the ether, but I understand your point. And I think that's my biggest problem about the personnel. Keeping the team together is going to be tough. Ryan Klipp says, hey, Boiled Sports Nation. I'm here for therapy session 2. I can't even come here with words of what we watched today. That's tough. Garrett Burkle says, we suck so bad. I have no words. Just want the season canceled. Yeah, it's funny how long the season feels as it gets worse. But I can just say from a time standpoint, I'm going to ask everybody to savor the good stuff if you can. Enjoy the season for what it is, for what that's worth to you. Football season is so darn quick. I've said this multiple times, at least because I'm old, but it moves too fast to me. But it does seem like it's a long way. The end is a long way off. Wade Ledbetter says, plays not played. Plays not played. Oh, okay. Here, I'd love to get an overview of the passing plays. There we go. Seems like Hudson Card is waiting too long to get rid of the ball. I agree with that. Play timing is destroyed. Yeah, he's holding on to the ball a long time. And there's one play. Do you remember? There's one where he just kept holding on to it. Wisconsin just started, dropping 8 into coverage in the second quarter. But there's one play where he just kept holding on. He wouldn't get rid of it. He wouldn't run the ball. And this, if you're going to say the thing that we can see as a theme that Card has struggled with, it's not making decisions quickly. But I think that could be coached too, to get the guy have a timer in his head, but he doesn't have that timer in his head, clearly. I understand your point. And it does ruin the timing of the receivers. One of their moms comes on here, and I'm sure she says, man, my son was open. I'm sure she's isolated on her son doing his job, and he had 1 catch today. He usually has. He gets a catch every game. He's a true freshman. It's awesome. Let's see. Ben says here to say, okay, I don't know where his other comment is. So, Nicholas Granat says, so terrible. Connor Fitch says, basketball season starts soon. You're right there. Chris says, defense was terrible. That's apparently why Purdue's paying him $4 million. And that's the tough medicine to swallow right now. KMKV6 says, my husband, who is a USC fan, asked about the number of coaches Purdue football team has. He was shocked to see how few specialist coaches there are. Brom had several more. Yeah, most teams in modern college football have a bunch of specialists and analysts. Purdue really doesn't have a lot of those. And I think that was obviously that was Walter's call. He was given the resources he needed to build the staff. He just didn't do that. Quinn says, what coaches could even be on the radar for our next head coaches? Trust me, there are good options out there. Jeffrey Gillis says, turn on ABC, Arkansas about to upset UT. Dag nabbit, I must have missed that. So, yeah, thank you for the heads up. I don't want to just watch TV while I'm on with you guys, but I do like that. Let's see. Ryan Gillis says, I know rankings aren't gospel, but I thought I read the preseason that the portal rank and recruiting class were in the mid-30s, and see this team play at 133rd level is just baffling. Yeah, the portal success that the coaches had, I think the portal stuff put them, if I remember correctly, at one point they were 16th in the portal signings, and I think they were 30th or something like that in recruiting and just old timey recruiting. So I think they're a little better than that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it could have slipped too towards the end. Obviously the blue chips will take their pick and get who they want. So let's see. Michael says, what I don't understand is that there are some people saying that Purdue might be 4-8, but actually be better than they were last year. I would like to know where they were thinking when they said that. Michael, you've been on here. I explained my thinking, and I said Purdue would have between 4 and 6 wins, and I settled on 5 and 7. I'll eat my crow. I was very wrong. But the reason I said that was pretty logical, and that came from, if you believed, and I did, I believed Walters was a good coach and he was going to take a step forward. So I thought, okay, I'm looking at the talent level, the things that he says about what he needs, and he has filled those needs. And he believes that he's got the right personnel to run his systems. And then you say, okay, he's going to take a step forward. Like we're seeing Nebraska, I think, took a step forward in the second year for Rule. I thought he would take a step forward, but he wouldn't take as big of a step forward because he's not as accomplished or as good of a coach as Rule, even if he was in better shape than he is now. So that's where my thinking comes from. But it's okay. Chris says, I like Cignetti. Look forward to his press conferences. Yeah, Cignetti is a jerk. So he's a good coach, though. Man, they made a great call. IU made a great call. They've got the best schedule for a first-year coach. And IU Athletic Department looks genius for this time, right? They've gone through some bad coaches, but they got a good one this time. There's no doubt. And the funny thing is, I told you there are a lot of Purdue fans that didn't agree with me. Man, IU has passed the eyeball test. Here's the big thing about IU. I don't know if we got any IU fans listening, watching, whatever. IU finishes games so darn well. Their fourth quarter, they are incredible. They're getting stronger as the game goes on. They're sharper, and they beat teams up in the fourth quarter. Pretty awesome. DJC 3232 says, so embarrassing. I have tickets to the Oregon game. Anybody want them? Ha ha ha. So I can't come to the Oregon game. I've got tickets to that, but my son's going in my stead because he's a student and he didn't get tickets because they're hard to get. The students will bring it. They're going to be there. So I hope everybody go in there and be loud. I can't be there. Family vacation stuff. So Greg Mass says, love his enthusiasm. He's talking about Coach Walters, I believe. Purdue cannot be an assistant or new coaches fail up job anymore. No kidding, Greg. You and I continue to be on the same page. Michael JB says, decision made on Hazel right after Iowa smoked us at home. Yeah. Everybody smoked us at home. That was decent. It's true. Mohill 93 says, well, at least one black and gold team had a great win today. Oh, Vandy. That was awesome. Their quarterback looked great. There you go. Michael says Braum came in 2017. So it was 3.5 years. Okay. So that's something to think about for all fans. Braum came in 2017. I could have sworn it was 2016. You could be right. So if that's the case, it was 3.5 years. Man, I mean, we knew the writing was on the wall early with Hazel, how bad things were. And if you listened, the recruiting problems that were happening, that's one big difference. This is the thing. You can't compare these two eras one to one because Hazel had burnt down recruiting pathways. Everybody tells me this. I have friends that coach high school football, and they said he's not even coming and talking to these coaches that want to talk to him. Like the coaches' doors are open, he's not walking through. And so that was one thing. You don't have that with Walters, right? You don't have that at all. In fact, there's good relationships. He's got a lot of people that like him. The players love him. It's just not being able to do, set up schemes, set up plays. It's painful. Michael says, MSP 138. He was talking to somebody else. MSP 138 said, you said it before, apathy sets in quickly with weekly results like this. Already experienced it with some Purdue fans I've talked to the last couple weeks. Yeah, I'm hearing it too, man. I'm with you. Let's see if I can find somebody who I haven't gotten. Nolan Klutsky says, didn't make a big difference, but I like seeing some of the more variation on the offense this week. I agree. From the I formation, fullback usage, and some of the end arounds are from our interim OC. He was improved over Harrell. And here's the thing I was thinking, right? He had his note card there. Simmons was on the sideline instead of in the box. They said he was going to be in the box, but they moved him down there, probably because the headset makes it just as easy to make eye contact as you're calling the play and just look at him. You know, if there's something goes on, you can do hand signal too quickly. But he was pouring over the notes, and he knows the offense decently well, right? He's been in a analyst role or whatever his title was. But this is a hard situation for him to come into. I think the offense could get better next week. I really do. I mean, I expect it, actually. Hopefully they do get better. But I thought they were they were mixing things up. That's what was so hard about Harrell's offense. It was so predictable. I don't think Purdue's offense was necessarily predictable this week. They weren't very sharp. Yeah. So, yeah, Michael said, be doubt, I was with you and I'm eating crow. Yeah, we both are, man. It's tough. So I think that's it. We've already said somebody good night down below. DJC said that. So, yeah. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. I hope you feel a little bit better than you did when you came in, but I don't know if you do. Brandon here, I didn't get this one. Brandon Smitely says, tough thing today was that this was the best shot to knock down Wisconsin. And this was the effort and outing we got. There was no heart out there today and on the field, and it makes it hard to watch and enjoy. Yeah, it was a vulnerable Wisconsin team. And I think we've seen very good Wisconsin teams with very good systems set up and very good personnel. And this year we're seeing a team that was beleaguered, right? They weren't playing very well. Their fans were kind of down on things, and they were digging deep in their 2 and 3 deeps, and it didn't matter at all. That's really hard. It's really hard to swallow. So, yeah, I do think the play calling was better today. I think it can get better next week again. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to get them over the hump. I was hoping we'd see Purdue kind of get into rhythm, because in the second quarter they started passing more. It felt like Walters was telling Simmons, okay, I want this ball control offense, so run the ball a lot. And Purdue was going 3, they'd get 1 first down, and then in the next 3, they'd have to punt, right? And I think somebody said, oh, come on, let's play football. Let's pass the ball. And so they started passing the ball more in the second quarter, and just, again, couldn't find any rhythm at all. So yeah, this, keep your heads up, Boilermaker fans. It's not worth being angry all day about. And it's not worth still being angry about 12 hours later, for sure. But God bless you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. See you Monday at around 9 for the Handsome Hour. Bye-bye.